The word value means different things to different people. For example, an old vase may have monetary value or great sentimental value. For some, it might be considered of great historical, cultural, or artistic value. Others might look at it as a useless piece of junk. People often disagree on the value they assign to objects, or they may agree that the object is valuable but in different ways. On the story you're about to read, you will learn about an object that has a very important value for a family. Hi, and welcome back. Everyday Use by Alice Walker. The objectives for this lesson are: first, literary analysis. We're going to review conflict and character. Second, reading skill. You're going to learn how to make inferences. Third, introduction to the short story Everyday Use by Alice Walker. In a literary work, film, story, or other narrative, the plot is the sequence of events where each affects the next one through the principle of cause and effect. The causal events of a plot can be thought as a series of events linked by each other. As you can see in this graph, we have the 5 stages of a plot. Most stories follow these 5 stages. So on the first stage, we have the exposition. That's where the characters are introduced, also the setting of the story. In the rising action, that's when the conflict starts or the problems. The climax is the moment of more suspense in the story, or it could be the turning point of the story. In the following actions, the problems start to solve. And in the resolution is when everything comes back to normal. You also learn that in a story we have different types of conflict. One of them is an internal conflict. An internal conflict is a struggle occurring within a character's mind. An internal conflict can also be a decision-making issue. In the external conflict, we have 3 categories. The first one is character versus characters. This involves 2 characters struggling against each other. The conflict can manifest in different ways, from a physical altercation to irreconcilable difference in morals or beliefs. Then we have character versus society. It's an external conflict that occurs in literature when the protagonist is placed in opposition with society, the government, or a cultural tradition or a society norm of some kind. And at last, we have the character versus force of nature. Occurs when a character faces resistance from a natural force. This can mean the weather, the wilderness, or a natural disaster. A story's plot progresses because of a conflict or struggle between opposing forces. In everyday use, the main conflict centers around 2 sisters, Dee and Maggie, and their mother who narrates the story. Although the main conflict between these characters is worked out in the resolution of the story, some other conflicts linger unresolved. As you read, pay attention to the conflicts and whether they are resolved. Also think about the difference in the characters' values and priorities in the story everyday use. Making inference. Because the writer doesn't always tell you everything you need to know about a character, you must make inference, or logical guesses based on story details and your own experiences. Let's make an inference based on a photograph. Here you have Peter. Just based on his clothes, you can infer that Peter is a doctor. Now, in the case of literature, we have this example. From this, you might infer that the mother in this story prefers the outdoors from her comment. A jar like this is more comfortable than most people know. It is like an extended living room. As you read, notice what the characters' words and actions tell you about their personalities and attitudes. Take notes on a chart like the one shown to help you make inference on the story. Introduction to the story Everyday Use. In her short story Everyday Use, Alice Walker takes up what is a recurring theme in her work: the representation of the harmony as well as the conflicts and struggle within African American cultures. Everyday Use focuses on an encounter between members of the rural Johnson's family. This encounter, which takes place when Dee, the only member of the family to receive a formal education, and her male companion return to visit Dee's mother and younger sister Maggie, is essentially an encounter between two different interpretations of or approaches to African American culture. Walker employs characterization and symbolism to highlight the difference between these interpretations and ultimately to uphold one of them, showing that the culture and heritage are parts of daily life. The characters. Mama is the narrator of the story. Mama describes herself as a big-boned woman with hands that are rough from years of physical labor. She wears overalls and has been both mother and father to her two daughters. Poor and uneducated, she was not given the opportunity to break out of her rural life. A loving mother, her frank, open nature prevents her from deluding herself when it comes to her daughter's weakness. Mama has a strong understanding of her heritage and won't allow Dee to take the family quilts. Maggie, the shy, retiring daughter who lives with Mama. Burned in a house fire as a young girl, Maggie lacks confidence and shuffles when she walks, often fleeing or hanging in the background when there are other people around. Unable to make eye contact, she is a good-hearted, kind, and thoughtful. Rather than anger her intimidating sister, she is willing to let Dee have the quilts that had originally been promised to her. Dee, Mama's older daughter, who has renamed herself Wangirl Liwanika Kemanjo. Dee wears a brightly colored yellow and orange ankle-length dress that is inappropriate for the warm weather. Her hair stands up straight on top and is bordered by two long pigtails that hang down in back. Dee is educated, worldly, and deeply determined, not generally allowing her desire to be thwarted. When Mama won't let her have the quilts to display, she becomes furious. She claims that Mama and Maggie don't understand their heritage, but she is the one overlooking the important aspects of her family history. Hakim, a barber. Dee's boyfriend or possibly husband. Hakim, a barber, is a black Muslim who Mama humorously refers to as Assalamu alaikum, the Arab greeting he offers them, meaning peace be with you. An unconscious present, he is a short and stocky with waist-length hair and a long bushy beard. His desire to make a good first impression makes him seem awkward. He makes Maggie uncomfortable by forcing his attention and greetings on her. Now, let's talk about the author, Alice Walker. Alice Walker is one of America's most distinguished authors. She comes from humble beginnings. She was the last of 8 children born to sharecroppers Willie Lee and Minnie Taluha Walker. Though money was scarce and life was hard, Walker loved the Georgia countryside where she grew up. Walker's childhood was shattered by a shooting accident when she was 8. She lost sight in one eye and had a disfiguring scar that left her intensely self-conscious. For years afterward, she felt like an outcast. Walker took comfort in reading and in writing poetry. With her mother's encouragement, she developed her talent for writing and did well in school. She graduated at the head of her high school class and received a scholarship for college. During college, she became involved in the civil rights movement and traveled to Africa as an exchange student. After college, she devoted herself to writing and social activism. She has written more than 20 books, including The Color Purple, which won a Pulitzer Prize in 1983. Now, let's make a review of the main ideas from this lesson. A story's plot progresses because of a conflict. In the story Everyday Use, the main conflict centers around two sisters. Because writers don't always tell you everything you need to know about a character, you must make inferences, or logical guesses, based on story details and your own experiences. In her short story Everyday Use, Alice Walker talks about the representation of the harmony, as well as the conflicts and struggles within African American culture. I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and until the next one, bye!